Hey, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
And this is a special Disruptive Investing channel interview that we have with Eric Desaulniers, who is the founder, president, and CEO of Nouveau Monde Graphite up in Canada. Thank you so much for joining us today, Eric.
Thank you very much, Zach. Thank you, Jesse.
All right, so we've been doing episodes now on lots of EV tech companies, and because everyone's writing to us nowadays saying, how can I get into this EV tech revolution? And this episode is all about how to get into EV tech, but through something you might not have considered, which is mining companies. And that's why we've got you here. You are the president of a mining company. You know everything there is to know about mining, but we don't know a lot about it. So let's get into it here. If I was new to mining, and I was originally a couple of years ago, my first thought was I'll get into just some big mining companies so I can't go wrong. So I invested in like Albemarle and Vale and SQM because I was like, they're multi-billion-dollar companies. What do you think of that strategy?
I think they are not a mining company, really. They are chemical companies. So that's the complexity. So now we're getting into the battery material space. The mining part of it, it's halfway through it. So Albemarle, SQM are more like chemical companies. So there's a lot of processing that need to be understood. And as well as the mining need to be understood, everything need to be working right. So that's even more challenging to invest in the battery material space.
Okay. So that I feel good because as I started to learn, I was like, yeah, this doesn't seem like the best way to play this. So then I started getting into what I consider mid-size mining companies, things like Piedmont, Nouveau Monde, Karora, Nemaska, and so forth. And these are companies that are, in my evaluation, from $100 million to say $500 million. And so they seem to be actively starting up their mines. They're not junior mines. They're not just thinking about mining. They're actually starting to do it. But it's pretty complex for me because I don't know all the chemicals that go into a battery. I know about lithium, and that's about it. What should I be thinking about?
Yeah, I think for mining, if you want to invest in mining, the biggest minerals out there is probably nickel. Nickel is really big in mining. It's bigger than the typical lithium or graphite. So nickel is very interesting. There's a large nickel company. And the challenge in lithium and in graphite is there's no large mining company that are pure plays into graphite and lithium. There's only actually Chinese companies, so it's different. In nickel, there are advanced large companies that are mining nickel since a long time, so it's a bit more mining. But the challenge for you probably, Zach and Jesse, is it a real deposit or not? So you need to make sure that yes, you want to invest in the team in lithium, but you need to make sure is there a resource, and there are regulations on different stock exchanges. So there is the JORG resource in Australia on the ASX exchange. There is the 43101 regulation in Canada. I would say in the US, the challenge, the reporting issuers in USA are not regulated under any of very strict mining regulations. So it's an added challenge for investors in the US, I must say.
Okay, so the big chemicals then that I should be looking at, the big minerals are lithium, nickel, you just said, graphite, and anything else that I should be thinking about to get into this play?
Copper. In an electric car, there's much more copper than in an ICE car. But the copper market, it's a much bigger market. It needs more growth to move the needle. So for nickel, it's roughly a 2 million ton a year market. So now we're expecting 1 million ton more needed of nickel by 2030. So it's a 50% increase roughly. So it is significant. For copper, yes, it's an interesting growth, but it's not as much impactful compared. On graphite, for instance, for flake graphite, it's a 800,000 market today, and we need 3.5 million ton more by 2030. So the impact of this revolution on graphite is tremendous. Same with lithium. It is transforming this niche little market into something more commoditized, and where really it will get bigger.
Now, my problem is I want to get into graphite, but the only graphite mines I've been able to find have been in Australia and yours in Canada. Am I wrong? Is there anything else I'm missing?
There's actually only one graphite mine in North America in activity now. It's operating since 1989 and it's close depletion. And that's the challenge. It's owned by a conglomerate. It's Imerys Graphite and Carbon, a French conglomerate. And, it's not a pure play in graphite. this conglomerate Imerys is specialized in niche commodity. So they can do as small as bentonite, granite, and graphite was a niche specialty in the past. And there's no pure plays in the Western world for graphite. The only pure play that I know, fully vertically integrated, pretty similar to what we want to do at Nouveau Monde Graphite, it is the company BTR New Energy Group based in China. It's worth $3 billion US market cap. They are the largest producer of anode material. They're selling today to Panasonic, meaning Tesla, and most probably some of the graphite we do have today is coming from them in our cars, So that's the first mover, pure plain graphite, but it's based in China. As 100% of the graphite market going in batteries, it is now based in China. So you're right, there's not much opportunities in the Western world, and that's our opportunity is to be the first mover and take a big market share thanks to the fact that we're developing this asset since 2015. We've invested $60 million in it, and we're the most advanced, the largest future graphite operation dedicated for lithium ion. But we have not much competition, only juniors and early stage startups that are not ready to deploy the capital, and they are understaffed, and they're not advanced as we are.
Now, can you walk me through what it would take if Jesse and I, for instance, tomorrow wanted to start a mine? I guess the first step is to find the right minerals underground. How did you do that?
First of all, you need to have resilience yourself and be ready for a long journey. And the journey starts, ourselves. My background is geophysics. I have an undergrad in geology and a master in geophysics. Graphite is conductive in the ground. So in 2012, I had the idea, let's find the next graphite mine because the one we have in North America is running out. So we started by exploration. So what we did is exploring, close to 1 million kilometers square. So very large territory in southernmost Quebec, surrounding the mine of Imerys and making sure we are discovering a large deposit. So from 2012 to 2015, we had very patient shareholders who really believe in the technical approach we had, like the Caisse de dépôt, FTQ, and early stage speculative investors. And then we discover many showings. We call it a showing. So you go on the ground and you find graphite and you get excited. After having surveyed it with an helicopter, you have an anomaly, you go on the ground, but you don't know the size. You don't know, is the metallurgy good? Can I extract the flake graphite efficiently from the ground? So you need to do trenches or drilling and just to figure out what is the size. And while you're doing that, you're doing also metallurgical testing, making sure with the flotation circuit, an easy process, you can extract the flake. So it's a long process. So 2015, we discovered a deposit. We've invested roughly $10 million in drilling it in all directions for 2 kilometers. Every 50 meters, we put a drill hole and we define a resource. Then we know the resource is big enough. We do an economical study on it. So we do a preliminary economic study in 2016, pre-feasibility study 2017, bankable feasibility study 2018, and now you need permits. So when you start doing the permitting, it's a 4 or 5 years process. So in 2016, we started to do all the characterization of the ground. What type of frog, what type of mushroom, what type of trees, what will be and what is the characterization of the site. And then after that, what will be the impact of my mining project in that environment. So it takes an awful lot of time. It was about 10,000 pages on 4 years, a lot of modeling, a lot of studies. And we will get the permit pretty soon, like after 4 years and a lot of investment. And we started a small demonstration plan as well. So we're now close to $70 million invested in the project to prove that we can do the right metallurgy, we can qualify our product with customer, and also that we won't have a major impact on the environment, on anything. So that's quite a process, actually. So that's why actually companies like the cell makers, I'm not sure they understand the level of challenge they will have in the next few years when there will be a bottleneck on mining projects. Because us, from 2015 to full-scale production in 2023, it's 8 years, and it will be in Quebec, like unseen how quick it will be developed. The average is more 12 years. So it's quite a process, and especially in the Western world where the laws are defined and it's a really well understood environmental process. It's a long process, but it's understood, especially in Quebec where mining is something with a lot of experts.
You talked me out of it.
Wow, yeah. Well, because, I mean, I think a lot of people think of mining and they think of, the old prospector, and he goes out there with his shovel or his
pickaxe
or his seeing rod or whatever, and he goes and he, chink, and he goes, oh, I'm rich, and he goes, yeehaw, and he goes, I have and then they mine it, and then there's a big hole in the ground, which the cowboys come and they shoot up. I think that's what a lot of people think of when they think of mining. Yeah. They don't think that it's this long process. They either picture the shovel goes in the ground and the oil spurts out of the ground, or they think of the prospector. It's not this idea that you're going to be, drilling every 50 meters to establish where, what the actual resource is.
I was a guy like that in 2012, actually, Jesse. I was running around with my beep map. We call it a beep map. And when it's beeping on the ground, it means there's something conductive. So I was a prospector, as you say, but not with my hammer, with an helicopter and with a beep map on the ground to, and I'm a successful prospector. But it will have 11 years since I started the company before we'll be in full scale production, and I never stop, and it's the quickest you can do it from exploration idea to full scale production.
Well, and this is where I kind of want to clue in our investors who are watching right now, because you're in a unique position. If you understand what's going to happen with EVs like we do, we know it's going to explode, and you understand what Eric just said, which is that they're going to need graphite, okay? And so there's only a couple plays in graphite right now, and when everyone kind of realizes it, it'll be too late, because it'll take 8 to 12 years or whatever just to get a mine up and running.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. So many people are used to suppliers, and you go, oh, we'll contact that supplier, we'll contact this supplier. And, suppliers might have suppliers, and suppliers might have more suppliers. But at a certain point, the buck stops somewhere, and that's going to be where you're pulling the stuff out of the ground. And so you don't have a supplier. You are the supplier. And so there is no like, oh, we'll just talk to X, Y, or Z. It's that you need a mine,
right? And
all of the steps that you just outlined are the steps that you need to take in order to open a mine. You can't just, tomorrow in your backyard be like, oh, wow, pure graphite. Like, the chances of that happening, first of all, slim. And then all of the different feasibility studies and permits and capital that you need in order to have that happen really show. I mean, I think that's such an interesting thing, because most of the times when we talk about businesses, we're not talking about mining companies. We're just thinking about, oh, you have a company. Oh, you need more things? Buy more things. But when the stuff's coming out of the ground, right, it's a much different...
It's a limiting factor.
Yeah, totally.
I want to go to the fact of why we're so excited about your mine, because a lot of people that watch us are like, why are you guys into mining? Like, we're against coal mines, for instance. But you guys mine differently than other mines. Can you tell us what's different about how you do your mining?
Yeah, in 2017, when we were developing the project and we realized we have a real asset, like we'll get into that business of selling graphite into the lithium-ion batteries. So, we started to look at the technologies available, and all, the market was going into electric fleet, especially for underground mining, because underground mining, actually, the ventilation and the air quality, it is super important. So for underground mining, all electric equipment was already getting available, So the first all electric mine is underground. It's operated by Goldcorp in Ontario. It's Borden Lake. It started, I think, 2 years ago. So based on the technology available and the partner we're talking to, we decided to start working on the first all electric open pit mine. And thanks to the fact that we do have very affordable, very cheap hydroelectricity right on site. So we are, and also the fact that we're not using 400 tonners like that you see sometimes in iron ore mine or huge gold mine. We're using 60 tons truck. So it's feasible to do it. There's already trucks available, all electric prototype. So we decided to do an all electric mine and have all the on-site, all the hydroelectricity needed to power that fleet and produce a carbon-neutral flake graphite and a carbon-neutral transform material into battery. So that's quite something. And in 2017 it was risky. Investors were not sure again, but now they are super happy. It sounds like it's their idea now. I must say the customer are asking for it. So especially the European customer, like we are at the forefront of talking with the car makers. In the past, miners were not talking to car makers. They didn't need to do that. Now they need, because the car maker need to sell a reservoir full of minerals. And this is key, and the quality of the car is the battery. So now the battery, so they need to develop this expertise. They need to, and the car makers are selling to consumer who are asking the less amount of carbon footprint possible. And it's translated by penalties in Europe. And I'm sure 100% it will be translated in penalties in the US soon enough. When our new elected president, Mr. Biden, a lot of experts believe he will be the greenest president ever. I'm really looking forward to see that. So when we talk to a customer in Europe, and now he is paying tons of penalties for all the ICE cars selling to decarbonize his supply chain, and we offer a carbon neutral product at the same cost than the Chinese and localized in the Western world, to diversify his risk also in terms of diversification of procurement supply chain. So we offer something very valuable to the customer. And now our shareholder really like it.
So is this why you just set up offices in Europe?
Exactly, yeah. So localization in Europe is something important. So for us, we want to produce 100,000 tons in Quebec. You cannot move the deposit, and deposit is right there. And you want to produce using the most hydroelectricity possible. The last final steps of the process to do battery grade material are not so energy intensive. So we can do it closer to the customer potentially. And it is something that the European customer are interested. So we are evaluating making the first big capacity in Quebec, in Bécancour, not so far away from our mine site, but then duplicate those modules in Europe first, and then potentially on the West Coast in the US. So have modules that we can duplicate easily and quickly rather than a huge transformation plant all at the same place. So that's why we've opened an office in Europe, exactly. It's to be in close contact with our customer, and especially during the COVID. I've been in Germany during the COVID once, and then you're stuck 2 weeks doing the quarantine afterward here in Canada. So it's not super efficient in the future. So and we've hired experts over there that were working for a major company in the past, and they know all the customers. So now we have a very good team in Europe, and that's the thing to do. We need to be closer to the customer. And I really believe in the lithium-ion battery space. It will become a little bit like the lead-acid batteries. It's still today the biggest battery market is the lead-acid battery. And the lead-acid battery is recycled 99%. It is very localized production because every penny counts. And when you hear Mr. Musk, you see that every penny counts. You need to develop a project that is the most lean and mean, less cost possible, and offer value to customer like carbon neutrality, traceability, good localization, but be ready to be low cost if you want to be successful, you know.
That's the craziest thing I think I've ever heard. I'm sorry. You are making a mine where you're going to be, creating graphite, and you're saying that you want your materials that you're mining out of the ground to be recycled, as opposed to you having to sell them new ones. I mean, most of the time, you're not going to hear the producers of products saying that you want them to be reused by the people who you've already sold them to.
Yeah, but if you want to, we need to electrify 1 billion car, 1 billion car, roughly. That's what is on the road, plus or minus a few million. So 1 billion EV means 100 million ton of graphite. Okay, 100 million ton of graphite. We can do it once, maybe twice, but we cannot do it more. So if we want this to happen, we need to recycle the materials. And the most successful producer in the future will be the one that will be able to integrate in their production line recycled material. And we are in very advanced discussion with actually 3 different recycling companies where we can partner, because the process we are developing, especially our purification furnaces using cheap hydro in Quebec and also co-located with the largest chlorine supplier in the world because we need some chlorine in the purification process. So it's much cheaper for the recyclers to do business with us and give us their black mass of graphite rather than themselves investing in all that infrastructure and that capital to purify and reintegrate their product into a final anode material. So for the cathode side, the recycler exists today only for the cathode side and all the fancy minerals in there. It's not a priority for them to work on the graphite. So it's an opportunity for us to be well integrated in that market. And as I said earlier, we're not only a mining company now, we're also a chemical company and we're an advanced material company. So if the feed comes from my pit or the feed comes from a recycled battery, I don't care. I will be able to process it greenly and resell it and then integrate it to my product offers. And you need to do that. And if you're not doing it, someone else would do it. So it's our job to really do it efficiently.
So you had to know all of this well in advance. You had to think that lithium-ion batteries were going to be the future because that was the reason you kind of got into graphite. And then you're thinking, okay, I want my graphite to be basically powered through lithium-ion batteries. And also, you know that once they start to be recycled, you're going to be able to do some of the recycling process in that space. So how did you get so far ahead? Because you started really early. What made you think that lithium-ion batteries were going to be the future back in 2015?
Actually, in 2012, when I started the company, it's the first time the graphite prices started to spike. Graphite prices were in the $3,000 a ton, and today they are $1,200. So it is still a small market, and every fluctuation in offer and demand is impactful. So in 2012, speculators were already starting to talk about the EV revolution. And then you have in 2014, Tesla announcing for the first time a gigafactory, if you remember. So investors started to be interested into graphite, So since 2015, we're really talking with anyone interested into that market, and we have a lot of expertise in Quebec, like Hydro-Québec here. It's a state-owned company who's producing 100% of our electricity, which is hydro. They have working in the last 30 years on lithium-ion technologies, including recycling and including the anode materials. They have over 800 patents. So they are very advanced in the know-how. So we've made the deal early in the project. In 2017, we've made a deal with Hydro-Québec. So we got to know a lot about the expertise needed to transform the material and also what is feasible. And so we're really advanced now in the transformation into anode material. And that's something quite important, to position yourself properly with the customer.
I know I was a little confused after Tesla's battery day. There was so much information thrown at us that I couldn't absorb it all. Obviously, the 4680 cell, we got that. But when Elon started talking about lithium and other things, I think a lot of people walked away with kind of not the wrong message, but maybe they missed a few messages. What was your take on battery day?
It's phenomenal. The amount of innovation that was proposed during the battery day, it's phenomenal. And I've read, probably like you, I've read a lot of books on Elon Musk and how Tesla started with J.B. Straubel. It started easy. Like it was, okay, let's put the cells in the 7,000 cells in the car and it will work. Now they're getting in the real game. They're trying to improve what is stuff that very smart people are doing since already some decades. So now they're getting in the real innovation of manufacturing, and we'll see if they are successful. Never bet against Elon Musk, I agree with you, but everything they were proposing is something very difficult to achieve and that need to achieve, and they have the right people and they have the right mindset to make it happen. In regard to the anode side, that was the last part of discussion. We were watching the battery day with some team members in the company, and when he announced that the silicon will be more and more added to the anode material to improve range, we all cheered, said, yeah, that's a very good news for us guys. Yes, sir. Everyone were instantly happy because it means that Tesla is not trying to change the technology in regard to the chemistry. The chemistry will stay lithium ion for a while, and they are just reinvesting in it. You know, they have some strategy to diversify the cathode material to help on the procurement side because they have some worries on the nickel side. So LFP, there's no nickel, so it's good to diversify the cathode side. But the anode side will always be graphite with silicon. Today they're using 5-7% of silicon, and they're planning to add up to 20-30% of silicon. Seriously, as I said, do we want to produce 100 million ton of graphite for the whole world to electrify the whole fleet in the future, or 70 million if it's 30% silicon? Doesn't really matter. Graphite will just incrementally be needed more and more and more in the future. So it's a very good thing that Tesla is reinvesting, restating that this is the technology for the future.
I want to go back to something that really attracts me to your mind, and this might be, superfluous to some investors, but the fact that I just saw in a recent video that you're making biking and hiking trails around your mine. So this isn't the typical, like, we're just going to destroy the earth. This is like, we're going to return it to as pristine as possible. Can you talk to me about like what came into that kind of planning?
Now, we're building a mine about 8 kilometers from the town hall of a small municipality named Saint-Michel-des-Saints. So Saint-Michel-des-Saints, this little town, is an industrial town, but since 2007, the largest shop over there closed, a forestry mill. It closed and 400 jobs were lost. So for them, it used to be very industrial, but since 13 years, tourism became to be a bit more popular in the area. There's a big lake, the Lac Taureau, where there's a big hotel, five-star hotel, fantastic place, on the opposite side of our mine. So the tourism becomes something important in the area. So it's our job, when you come with a mining project, it's not exactly the first thing that cottagers and tourists want to go see. Although on Malartic in Quebec, there's the largest gold mine, Malartic mine, there's about 15,000 visits per year. So it could be a touristic site, very interesting one. So there's a huge crown land that is not used close to our project. And there's a great mountain where you can do about 2 kilometers of downhill. And I do a bit myself of mountain biking, electric one, obviously, it's easier. It's easier. It's so fun to do electric mountain biking. So I started to do myself some ride in the mountain, and we've hired one top expert doing mountain biking trails here in Quebec. And he came and he said, oh, you have a very nice site. So it's a small investment for us to attract a lot of the tourists who would like to see our mine from the air, from the mountain, and also start doing some mountain biking. So for us, it was a very good way to give back to the community and be helpful for tourism instead of being harmful. And so that's really part of our integration plan to the local community. And I'm really keen to see it and go do some mountain biking there.
Yeah, I think I want to do that. When we get the Cybertruck, we should head up to Canada. Hopefully COVID will be, over by then, and we can come visit.
Load it up with some graphite. Well, I was thinking load it up with some graphite, and we'll take it somewhere.
The other part of this that I think a lot of investors don't fully understand is your new partnership with Olin, because I'm not a material scientist, so I don't fully understand how that works. Can you explain how that partnership is going to help?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's not the same type of investor. Probably not a lot of your audience probably are invested in Olin. Olin is the largest chloralkali supplier in the world, and also the largest small ammunition supplier to the U.S. military. It's Winchester. So it's a great corporation, great partner for us. They are located in Quebec. They have one plant there, and they are producing chloralkali. So Cl2, chlorine. It's our primary chemical that we need. And they are also producing NaOH and H2. So they're taking salt, basically electrolysis, and they're producing those chemicals. So for us, we were looking for a site where we are the closest as possible to our chlorine supplier. So there's no place closest to them than right in their infrastructure. So we are building in an old electrolysis hall. We're installing our 2 first commercial scale purification furnaces, and we have direct access to the chlorine supply, but also the NaOH. So that our reaction is the reverse reaction compared to their reaction. So we're raising temperature, injecting chlorine, and scrubbing it with NaOH to produce a brine, a salty water with impurities that we give back to Olin, and they have all the system to remove our impurities and use the brine as a feedstock and sell us back the chlorine and the NaOH. So that's really what we're developing with them. It's all the R&D necessary to pinpoint the process with them and make sure we develop a fully sustainable process. And what I mean by sustainable, it means also low cost and also, sustainable environmental wise. So we have secured the land across the street. When we'll maxed out the capacity in their facility, we will be able to expand across the street, and we have secured the land because we will want to use a pipeline and be adjacent to their facility is very important. So we're really fortunate by the agreement we have. We have a 5 years exclusive agreement for the location we're in, and we're looking forward to deploy more capacity like that. Potentially elsewhere, they are also producing chlorine. That's I think the true way to be fully sustainable.
Now, when I was watching your earnings call, I didn't quite understand how you're basically increasing the value of the product you take out of the ground. How is that possible? Like you take it out of the ground, you refine it, but then you're doing something else. You're adding some other value to it. What is that step?
So when you take it out of the ground, you crush the rock, you float it, and the graphite is hydrophobic. So with a flotation circuit, you're able, by a sequence of grinding and floating, you get to 98%, in our case, purity. So you have a flake graphite. That's not what the battery maker wants. So we can sell some of those flakes in specialty graphite and refractory bricks and foil for iPhone, 5G, e-dissipators. There's a lot of different application. Fuel cell, vanadium redox batteries. There's a lot of other application. But if you want to sell into the lithium-ion battery space, you need to first purify your flake, make it 100% or 99.95%. That's what we do at Olin. And then you need to shape your flake. You need to make a ball with it. So you need to micronize, ferronize, and then do a small coating of carbon around it. And then it's ready to sell to the customer. Currently, the largest producer in the world is BTR, New Material Group in China. And these guys are selling roughly $6,800 per ton. So you take a product that was valued roughly $1,500 per ton when it was a flake, and you can sell it $6,800 a ton to battery maker. So you increase, and our strength actually with Olin is to have a 3 cents per kilowatt hour hydroelectricity rate, much cheaper than what the Chinese can have, and be co-located with our chemical supplier and have access to our mine that is very close to provide the flake at a very affordable cost. So being fully vertically integrated like that, it's the way to create value and have the best margin possible for making the value-added product.
So right now, if I'm, say, Tesla and I want to get graphite, it doesn't look like I have too many choices. It sounds like China is my big choice, and they're not green. They make, their power is coal-powered. But now it looks like soon I will have Nouveau Monde as a choice. What advantage is that to auto suppliers in the world?
Exactly. That's the whole point. That's quite interesting. So currently they supply themselves 100% from China. We are developing a project that can sustain the cost parity with the Chinese, but that's not what we want to do. We want to give more value to our customer. And how we do that? They need to diversify their supply chain, and they need to diversify it with local supplier like us that are providing a carbon neutral product, but on top of it, fully traceable. So to certify that it is coming from this pile of rock, for instance, and this is that carbon footprint that is certified. So we are offering, we don't want to be providing 80% of the needs of Tesla or all the automakers in the Western world. That's not what we want to do. We want to be the second supplier that provides de-risking solutions for them, fully carbon neutral solution, bring more value to the supply chain so their supply chain is more resilient and it's more de-risk. That's really our positioning, and that's quite important. The market is so big, the growth is so important that we need to find our niche and get it right for our shareholders.
So when you're talking about carbon neutral mine, we're talking about the trucks themselves. They're going to have lithium-ion batteries in them, and so not only does that mean, like you had just said, that the companies that want to buy your product will have this traceable carbon neutral thing, but how common is it for an open pit mine to be fully electric?
No, it's totally uncommon. We are actually the first open pit project out there. There's no other open pit project. But the opportunity is not only for mining in our case, it's also for quarries and construction site. The type of truck we're buying, 60 tons, it is also the one used mainly in quarries and construction. So the market is much bigger than typical 400 tonners that the big iron ore mine can use, So it's not only lithium ion powered. We are in the trade-off now to potentially use also hydrogen fuel cell powered solutions. So we are in a request for bid as we speak to find all equipment supplier OEMs that are developing zero emission solutions. So when the energy requirement gets a bit bigger, the fuel cells are offering a lot of flexibility and could be quite interesting. So we're open to listen at both solutions as we speak. But there's quite a few companies that are developing solution today that are public. Is the company e-mining in Switzerland are operating a 60 tons truck since a few years already in a quarry. There is Volvo, who are operating a quarry in Finland, all electric as well. So there's a lot of options available, and we just want to make sure that we cover it all, and all the 60 different pieces of equipment we'll use on our sites is fully electrified. The easiest one was to order 5 Cybertrucks, so this is already made, and 1 Rivian. And the Rivian, it sounds like I did the configuration a few weeks ago, and it sounds like next summer. So I'm really keen to see that happening.
Yeah, we're getting one hopefully in June. So yeah, we're excited about the Rivian as well. When we're looking at some of these mid-sized companies, I'm looking at the stock price and I'm looking at their earnings, and I'm like, they don't have any earnings. So like, how do I judge? Normally I judge a company with a PE ratio, and I see that, okay, they've got nice steady earnings or growing earnings, but they're not, it's not growing. So like, can you help me here at all, Eric? Like, what should I be looking for since I can't use that metric?
Yeah, actually, you need to look at the future earnings and how much capex is needed to get to that earnings and what dilution it will do on the shareholders. So that's what you need to look at when you look at mining project. And also, realistically, when will it be in production? Permitting is key. And sometimes permitting is overlooked by a company, and they do have a resource in the ground, but they didn't start the permitting. So for a fact that they won't be producing anytime soon if they didn't start properly the permitting. So there's quite a lot of few things to look at, and for sure they will have zero earnings until they are fully in production, and then boom, big earnings, 100 million a year. So that's a challenge when you're a newcomer in the mining industry.
Now, there's a company, Piedmont, and there's a company, Leading Edge Materials, and both of those are getting a lot of excitement. But let's talk about Piedmont, for example. A lot of people are conjecturing that maybe like Tesla will buy them out. And so my question to you is, what do you think? Is Tesla interested in getting into the mining industry, or is that they were just basically trying to get some excitement for investors to put money into mining?
I don't know exactly what is the strategy of Tesla, obviously, but when you look at it, they cannot deploy capital everywhere in the supply chain. It is unrealistic. They already have a lot of capital to deploy and to control the cell making. That's already quite a challenge. So I don't see them coming and finance a lithium mine, a lithium conversion plant, a graphite mine, a anode conversion plant. It's too much capital for a single company. Personally, that's what I believe. I know those guys, and also they want to rely on great technical team. I know the guys at Piedmont Lithium have built the right team there, and they can do it. And I think that's what we've seen in the Piedmont situation. They were able to secure a long-term supply agreement, and I believe that's what they should do. They should be there in the supply chain, offer the comfort that the investor need to write checks to build projects. And that's what we see in Piedmont. So that I think they are playing their role there.
Jesse and I are long-term investors, right? So when we invest, I usually think 5 years, 10 years before I'm even going to think of getting out of a stock. When I'm looking at mining companies, should I have that same long-term view, or should I just be looking at like getting in now and getting out next Friday?
That's a good question, actually. Sometimes it depends. Sometimes there's overexcitement too early in mining projects, and sometimes it's undervalued and it should not, So it's difficult to gauge, but mining investors, the most successful one are the long-term investors, especially the one we have in our company. The Palingers Group is a good example. These guys want to deploy hundreds of $1 million. So when you deploy that kind of money, you need to take your time and you need to do it right, because mining is cyclical. So you need to invest when no one else is doing it. Position yourself in the supply chain when no one else is doing it, and they're very smart about it. They just purchased with the Quebec government the Nemaska lithium asset. They've positioned themselves in our company, and they are truly instrumental in making sure we do all the right steps. They are a true mines builder who did it numerous times in the past, and they are thinking exactly like you, Zach. They are thinking 10 years time frame when the cycle will be much more interesting and in a hype. That will be the right time, probably in 10 years from now, when the project will be fully producing at the best EV EBITDA possible, and that's when you exit. So, but you need it depends the amount of capital also you want to invest and the size of the company. That's all stuff you need to look.
Now, Jesse and I have been really enjoying your latest publicity materials, especially your fun ones with Rick from Rick and Morty. And I got a question for you, which is that, at the end of some of those, you're doing the funny routine where you're at your desk waiting for the phone call from Elon. Have you gotten that phone call from Elon yet?
Obviously, we cannot go in any specifics with the customer. We were just using public information to make fun of a situation, but obviously, this is Elon Musk is kind of a figure in this space. I think he's doing a tremendous, great work out there, and it's great for us just to do a bit of a clin d'œil, we say in French, to the work he's doing, and hopefully he saw my video.
I'm sure he has. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Eric. Thank you for all the advice. I'm sure that our viewers are thankful too. We'll be checking back in with you soon, and hopefully in the not too distant future, we'll be driving up there and taking a look at your beautiful space.
Great. Thank you very much, Zach.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Disruptive Investing. Be sure to like the video and subscribe. Click the bell button to be notified when new videos come out.